So I have a question for you gentlemen today. I just found out something that I didn't know was a genre, but it makes sense. I'll ask you this first, James, since you are the crime writer here. How familiar are you with cozy mysteries?
You know what? I'm actually kind of reading one right now. At least it's kind of cozy to me. I don't know if it really counts. I'm reading. Are you guys familiar with Agatha Christie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been reading a bunch of her books recently. Murder on the Orient Express, The
That's actually
Murder
on
by
our reading list.
Aykroyd.
Yeah, we're going to begin to that
Yeah.
eventually here.
So I tell you what, I was reading I read Murder on the Orient Express, which is, by the way, it's an amazing book. I can't wait to see the movie. To me, it's cozy because nowadays you have like all these murder mysteries where like the detective is like this just like grizzled, just hard boiled dude. You know, he's about to lose his job. He's got a drinking problem, doesn't get along with his parents, and has got an ex-wife he hates or whatever, and he's just got all this baggage. Meanwhile, he's like investigating his murder, and it's like always everybody he meets is shady, and it's great. You know, like I love those stories. You know, all that noir, hard-boiled stuff, and then it's like then you get. But it's a cozy mystery is very refreshing because it's like it's the good guy in the white hat looking for the criminal, whoever it is, whether it's like a thief or a murderer. You know, instead of like all these stories with baggage that are great, it just has that refreshing basic story that we all just kind of miss sometimes. So, you know, I was just reading all these different murder mysteries where it's just really dark and gloomy. Then in comes Agatha Christie's detective, Hercule Poirot, who is just this, you know, he's kind of quirky dude, very unassuming at first. Then like at the end of the book, he's like, the murderer is that guy, and meanwhile, I was thinking it was this guy the whole time. But then he's not just like Joe Friday, you know, who's just, well, ma'am, it's all part of the job. I'm a cop. That's what I do. In this one, like especially on Murder on the Orient Express, he really uses his. So I'm also kind of like really promoting Agatha Christie here, but I've just really been on a kick recently. In comes this guy who really has his own set of morality, which some people may or may not get along with, but I don't know. To me, that's cozy. Just this guy's just trying to figure out who the murderer is. You know, he has a personality, but mostly he's just trying to find out who the killer is. And I don't know. I like kind of going back to that
simplistic style,
that basic story. Yeah,
you just get a black and white. There's no gray area. Good guy, bad guy. Your mystery unfolds, and there's no. I mean, I'd imagine a cozy mystery isn't going to be very violent. Not a lot of murder. Probably, right. Usually small
maybe
town.
One, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
I always think of Murder She Wrote.
Murder She Wrote, yeah.
Because there's Murder She Wrote novels. If you love the show and you needed more after however many seasons, there's a series of Murder She Wrote novels that you can get.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to check that out. I've been thinking I could read a nice cozy mystery once in a while from all the bleak stuff we normally read.
My mom has been reading a lot of those, so maybe I can talk to her like, "Hey, Mom, what's a good cozy mystery we can read for the podcast?" Like,
just the title "cozy mystery" makes me think of like you're trying to find a lost dog or a kitten or something.
It's like a lot of those like the Hallmark Channel kind of stuff too. That that's what I always think of when I hear the cozy mystery. Or
where I first heard it today, I mean, I was aware of cozy mysteries, but I never really gave much thought to them. It was that Hemingway podcast I listened to. They had a bunch of people on, were discussing when Hemingway, his wife, she brought, he had a suitcase full of all his manuscripts. She lost it, and he lost everything he had. Well, I didn't know, but they turned those into a lot of mystery books now. That actual premise, and not just like the premise of it, but Hemingway himself and his wife. And there's a cozy mystery based off of it.
Oh, wow.
And it was about like a small neighborhood and someone helping people with the garage sales. And then she goes and finds the missing, famed legendary suitcase full of manuscripts. But then somebody steals it, and I guess your mystery unfolds. But yeah, I think we should all read a nice cozy mystery.
Next to the fire with a cup of cocoa.
Maybe we should even cover that on the podcast, and we can actually have something PG for once. Like kids can listen to that episode, maybe.
I'm the wrong guest then.
Yeah. No,
PG one.
You're in the right place for this episode. Anyway, we will be back after this wonderful musical intro, and then we'll be talking about crime and other fun stuff. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Dakota Dirt Devil Church. I almost forgot to give you a name.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. You're devil of dirt. Dirt devil. That's like a Tasmanian devil spinning.
Like a vacuum.
And today we have a special guest from the introduction. You already heard him, but we did not bring him on, or, we didn't introduce him because we're not professional. So author of Ice Rising, the sequel Ice Box, The Ballad of Johnny Carlo, and Life's Dark Corners, Mr. James Michels. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How y'all doing?
Not too shabby. So you're one of them crime writers that we seem to keep getting on the podcast for some reason.
That's right.
You want to give the listeners who are unaware of your work a little taste? Maybe what would be a good starting point for them to get into your stuff?
I guess it depends on what kind of reader they are. I know everybody has their preference. Some people prefer like series, some like standalones, some like short stories. I'd say for somebody who is kind of maybe getting back into reading or trying it out, probably try my collection of short stories, Life's Dark Corners. It's 5 different stories. All of them are in like different crime genres themselves, like psychological thriller, urban, noir, thriller, things of that nature. It'll also help them get like a little bit a taste of everything that I have to offer.
That's probably where I would go. That's why I usually like if I find a new author, if they have a short story collection, that's always perfect.
Yeah.
Because then you can not just get a taste of their writing style, but maybe other things they write, whether it's it could be a crime series, just a bunch of crime stories, but you could still get different styles of crime stories. You have your noir, like we talked about, the cozy mysteries. You could have all kinds of things in those. I think I got that Raymond Chandler, collection. A lot of them are noir stuff, but some of it is a little different.
Yeah.
So I guess the big question, though, I have for you, James, is why crime? What made you get into writing crime as opposed to fantasy, sci-fi, any of the other genres, or literary fiction?
I mean, I have been a crime junkie since I was a kid. I grew up watching true crime and crime fiction. I grew up watching Casino, Scarface, The Godfather. Those are my favorite movies, The Godfather. I mean, I love 1 and 2 so much, I'll even throw 3 in there for free.
That's the only way anybody's going to take it.
Yeah.
Goodfellas, and like all aspects, like I'm big into true crime as well. So, I would do a lot of reading up on like the mafia and bank robbers and serial killers and white collar criminals and just all sorts. And add that to me just being an avid reader. And then one day I'm at my job and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like where I work now, I like it, but I knew I was going to kind of reach that moment where I was going to plateau. So I was like, okay, so what do I want to do for myself? Like, I need to build myself up somehow. So maybe I can learn a language. Maybe I can learn a new skill. Maybe I can write a book. I love to read. Why don't I write a book? And I said, so what kind of book am I going to write? Well, what kind of books do I like to read? I mean, I like a little bit of everything, but what are my favorites? Crime fiction. So I said, why don't I just become a crime writer? And that's how it all got started.
Easy
so
enough.
It's just my favorite genre to read. So that's, I wanted to write what I like to read.
That's I think that's how most of us start.
Yeah, at least starting out.
It'd be kind of odd if you wrote stuff that you hate to read. It's like, I'm going to write this, but I hate reading it. Did you have like a testing of writing before you got into just writing books and stuff? Like, did you try short stories when you were younger? Or, a lot of people, they write a little, then they fall out of it, come back to it. Was it anything like that?
I love this question. It actually didn't dawn on me to take it seriously. Okay, so I actually did not like to write when I was a kid. That just wasn't my thing, but I think it was because it was always like school related. Like, tell us, like, here's the topic for the day, write about it. Unless it was, and I never really picked up on it until I started really actively writing a few years ago, that I liked to create something that feels on my own terms. When I was a teenager, I actually did start writing a story. And I just stopped after like a few weeks. I was like, okay, I'm not interested anymore. And so when I got older, about 5 years back, when I started on this journey, I thought about that. And I was like, I never finished that story. So I know I have to finish this one because I started telling everybody I want to write a book. When you start telling everybody, then you become one of two people. Either you become the person that says they're going to do it and doesn't, or you're going to be the person that does it. And I've been that guy before where I said I'm going to do this and I don't. So I said, no, this one I'm going to stick with it. And after kind of getting halfway through the story, I realized other ideas came to mind. And I realized, like, wow, this is actually this is something for me I never knew that I had, which was a natural talent. And that was like the missing piece of me.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because Raymond Chandler, one of the godfathers of crime noir, didn't start writing until later in life. He had no interest in writing. He just did it to make money. And it's like, we'll see how that went. So it's always funny. It's like a lot of people I find that end up, especially even with lucrative writing careers, they didn't even intend to be a writer in their life. They were an ad executive. They worked at a law firm. And then they just maybe did writing as, a fun hobby once in a while. But usually once you get into it, especially once you develop your skills a little bit, and you're like, hey, people actually like what I'm writing. They actually like reading it. You end up taking it more seriously, and then the ball gets rolling, and then all of a sudden you're getting published or you have books out. There's a lot of people now that's just like straight indie publishing. And I don't know, I think I said to you that thing about Terry Mixon. He made, in 9 years, he made over $1.5 billion.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You didn't send me
almost $2 million just on his indie books.
Oh, wow.
I was like, damn. I'm going to start publishing my own books here soon.
Almost there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he writes a lot of series. That's the thing. Have you thought about, I didn't ask you this, writing crime series? Like we covered Walter Mosley's Easy Rollins books. He had a whole series of those. Or like the Raymond Chandler, he had a whole series of books. And that seems like the way to go to me.
Especially with the crime fiction, it seems like that's a very popular thing to do.
Well, I actually have an ongoing series. That's my Ice series. You mentioned before Ice Rising and Ice Box. It's part of an ongoing one, and Ice Rain is the one that I'm actually going to be releasing soon in the next few months. It's in the editing stages right now, but I have a very, very good editor. I'm happy to work with him. And but also with my other book, The Ballad of Johnny Carlo, you talk about series. When I wrote Johnny Carlo, I realized that I kind of created this really big universe. One of my favorite graphic novel series is Sin City. You guys ever read that or seen the movie? So, in Sin City, you have all these great stories where it has its end and it has its finish. And if you want to, you can read up about this other character that kind of was there, or this other character that kind of was there. So with The Ballad of Johnny Carlo, that's what I kind of got. So I have two different universes. One is a linear series, the Ice series, and the other one is what I like to call the Johnny Carlo series. And it just gives all these different characters their own stories. Like in Life's Dark Corners, as I mentioned earlier, one of the stories in there is actually an origin story for a couple of the characters that are first introduced in The Ballad of Johnny Carlo. That's kind of like an experiment for me, and I think it worked out perfectly.
Well, that could be a lot of fun just because you could pretty much tell any story you want. And even if you wanted to go outside of the crime genre, you could, just because you have so many, you could have a romance one just based off of the characters that you brought up in your crime series.
That's very true.
So you could, infinite expansion. You could get a little nutty with that and start going into hard sci-fi and stuff if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend that. Just from the sounds of it, it seems like you're doing like the indie publishing thing the right way. You have the editor. You were talking about having somebody do your book covers. So you're actually doing the process properly versus some of these indie people. They don't edit anything. They just slap it together, throw it out there. And we went to a romance panel one time at a convention, and the one lady up there, what was it, 1 or 2 books a month? Every month?
It was something ridiculous. They didn't even do spell check.
It's like, well, who's reading that? I don't understand. But how did you get into that? Like, there's a big learning curve when it comes to indie publishing. You don't just go into it. Like, you have to research. So how did that all go about?
You're not kidding. And I actually wish I brought one of my original covers for Ice Rising. That was my first book. Okay, so I'll start off with why I started in indie writing. I actually tried to go traditional with my first book. I mean, I was hitting up literary agents left and right, trying to tell them about my new book. And I went like a year. Nobody wanted it. So I said, okay, here I am with this manuscript. And I've been telling everybody I wrote a book. And I was really just burning to get the cover, get the whole physical book out there and show everybody, look, I wrote a book. Here it is. I didn't want to self-publish at first. I really didn't, because I knew it'd be a lot of work. But I mean, after a year, you just get tired of, getting rejections. And I said, you know what? Fine. If nobody's going to publish it, then I'm going to publish it myself. And I'm going to make it happen. And it does come with a learning curve. I mean, when I published Ice Rising, so I have a copy of it here. So this is Ice Rising, my first book, right? See how nice it looks, like a decent size, and it matches the sizes of all the other ones. It did not come out this way at first. This is actually like a republished edition, because originally it came out like this big.
Gigantic.
Like a proof coffee.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know. You just print out the pages, and then you could have just they weren't stapled together, but you could have just stapled them together and said, this is what it looks like. And what's funny is, when I wrote the Ballad of Johnny Carlo, I was telling my buddy, I said, hey, that could be like kind of like my thing. I could publish it and make them all like this size, right? That's kind of like my thing. And he was like, and he said to me, he said, no, don't do that. I said, you're right. And
you don't want to be the oversized guy.
It doesn't fit on anybody's bookshelf.
Right. So I guess I just kind of lived in denial for a while. And eventually I went back to it, and I edited the trim size. That was a big learning curve for me, was trim size, which affects the margin and the size of the print and everything. So yeah, it's definitely a learning curve with self-publishing. I recommend anybody, especially if you're going to use Amazon, which is where I go through, definitely go on YouTube or talk to somebody who's done it before through Amazon, and just kind of have them guide you through the steps, because it's a great platform. But if you kind of go in there blind, you're going to have a lot of troubles, especially if this is your first go around.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time. The thing with like trying to get traditionally published, especially even in a, genre like the crime genre that's so oversaturated as is,
yeah,
to get anyone to even look at you twice is really difficult. I mean, like we had Nick Obergon on a couple times, and he told us the more exotic the locale, if you're, if you have some kind of diversity in your background, really exploit that, because they want anything that'll help you stand out. And even if you do get accepted, we're going to publish you, and we're going to, we'll do all the edits and stuff. We'll put the book together. You still have to do all the marketing yourself, and you have to wait probably years for that book to come out. Whereas if you do it yourself, it comes out when you want it to come out. You get 100% of the profits, and other than paying like your editor, the cover guy, and all that stuff, if you are able to recoup that stuff and then make a little bit of a profit, that's still a win. Versus traditionally published, where if none of your books sell, they get sent back from the bookstore, and you don't own the rights to that book anymore, so you can't do anything with it. That's terrible.
Right. There's a lot of ups and downs to both sides. And me, there's definitely some downsides with self-publishing, is the fact that like nowadays anybody's publishing. So there's a lot of saturation. But the good thing is if you're a writer and you really believe in what you're writing, then that's a huge foundation for you to really publish your work, if you believe in it yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to really take the effort to really get your work out there however you can.
The most difficult thing for me would be the marketing and the social media and that stuff, because we've discussed many times on this podcast, neither of us like doing that stuff. And most writers, they just want to write. They don't want to do any of the marketing. Have you had anything, successes and failures with that? I mean, now a lot of authors are switching to TikTok to try to get their boost, but
I do TikTok.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a writer-friendly medium, other than, you could do writing-related memes and stuff, but Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. What have you gotten the most success from, the most exposure from?
At this point, I'd have to say probably Facebook. So Facebook is my oldest page, and of all, because I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Facebook, I have like the most followers on there, so I'm happy about that. Like it's so like when I reached over 1,000, I was like, whoa, I'm like famous now. Once you get that K next to your number of followers, that's a good letter.
Big time now.
And I really want to reach that K with the other ones. And it's always nice when you kind of go on there and say, hey, so-and-so's following you. Hey, yay, I have another fan, hopefully. Well, I also like YouTube. I mean, because I upload every day. So whenever I go on YouTube, usually around midday, I'll be like, hey, I got like 1 or 2 new subscribers. This is a good day. And, you get used to it. You enjoy it. You kind of find a way to kind of get yourself in there. Because, yeah, I mean, you do memes. I do plenty of memes. But like on my YouTube channel, I do book reviews, book discussions. I talk about my own writing process. So, yeah, I kind of try to really get myself in there, too. My big thing is entertain. Like as a writer, I think nowadays a lot of writers get stuck because they want to be like this like new like Dostoevsky, where everything is supposed to represent something in their story. Like, oh, he painted this white picket fence every day. That means that struggling between his dad's conservativeness and his mom being a liberal, or the green grass represents the downfall of society or something. It's like, I'm not that writer. I write just to entertain, and it's like people have read my books and they said, wow, that really like helped me kind of change the route I was going through in life. I was like, I'm glad it worked for you. I'm sure somebody who wanted to be a drug dealer watched Scarface and said, oh, I'm not doing that now.
Yeah.
We're having him at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of my personality, just be an entertainer, but also give something of value.
Well, you touch on a very good point. A lot of writers nowadays feel like they can't have fun. They can't tell a fun story or a story that's just escapism or entertainment. They feel like, and their persona also goes along with that. They have to be the super serious, oh, Fyodor Dostoevsky, I grow a beard and I don't talk to anyone. I'm Cormac McCarthy, I'm reclusive and do one interview every 20 years. Like, no, you get to have fun. You can be on YouTube. You can make goofy videos and serious videos. I would say don't shy away or be afraid from the limelight, or, afraid of the limelight, because How else are you going to get the exposure to get your work out there? You can't just expect in such an oversaturated market that your work is going to stand on its own when no one knows about it. And that's the main thing. Once you build the audience, sure, then you can be reclusive and it doesn't matter. But initially, you have to build your own brand. And that's the marketing side of thing I think a lot of people struggle with.
Right. And that's the thing is like being an author. Like, so when you become an author, it's up to you to decide like how you want to take your writing. Like some just do it as an outlet. They write, they don't even publish. They just write and they put it in a notebook and they leave it. Others will publish and say, whoever reads it, whoever doesn't, that's fine. And others, if you really want to get it out there, then it's a business, bro. And like everything, businesses change. You're right. Like you can't be that reclusive guy like Dostoevsky, like that, rest in peace. But that was 150 years ago. Nowadays, you really have to be out there. You kind of got to look at like what some of these new authors that are still big out there, like the ones that are stay big, like James Patterson, like you can look on his Instagram, he's got like funny pictures of himself and whatever, just engaging and just being out there and people can see. And that's the thing is when you're an author, like anything else, you're a brand and people really want to trust brands. So you got to really put yourself out there and be engaged, especially with your readers, because they want to know more about you as a person.
Well, that's even Stephen King, because you think, well, how do you get more relevant than Stephen King? Well, how does he stay relevant? He's constantly on Twitter and on social media. Mm-hmm. He's always bringing up, up discussion topics and keeping his name out there. Because, yeah, he could keep having books come out, but if he didn't do that stuff, eventually his fans would read the books, but not new fans. Yeah. I mean, you guys in the 70s, like, you're not going to bring in new audiences because of your name from, way back when most of the readers that knew you way back when are 60s, 70s year old, you're old too.
Well, I was gonna say, that's like I've mentioned before, there's been numerous like authors that I've only got into because like they were like on some podcasts that I listened to or something like that, and like once like listening, to them and them talking, like, oh, I kind of like that guy. Like, I know nothing about his work, but I just like the conversations that he's having. I'm gonna go check out some of his stuff, and like that's how you, like how we were talking about, like that's a tool to grow your fan base and everything like that.
Well, it might be our age demographic, but I can definitely say for me, most of the new authors I find are through podcasts.
Yeah.
That's mostly the way I find new authors. Every once in a while, like Goodreads or something, but Usually it's because their personality shine through, even more so than the books they're talking
Yeah.
about. So this is their personality. Like, that person sounds interesting. I would like to read, at least one of their works and see, how they are. Ooh, that brings up another one. Are you on Goodreads? I know a lot of authors on there either really, really hate it because it is a very, there's a toxic Goodreads culture underneath the normal Goodreads culture. Because you get people that get reviewed bombed and all kinds of stuff like that. But I know a lot of authors, they host chats and different things on there. Have you done anything like that?
I am on Goodreads. All of my books are on there. Typically, I only really use Goodreads to do my book reviews because whenever I read a new book, I review it. Yeah, I mean, that's primarily what I do on there. It's something I want to get into more. It's on my list. I've been on Goodreads for a while. Again, I just use that to kind of build my reviews and help the algorithm, then kind of help other people out and get their work out there.
I didn't notice on your website, do you only post your reviews on Goodreads? Because you can, just copy and paste, put them on your website as well.
So what I do is I post them on Goodreads and I post them on Amazon. But actually, I do video reviews of each book.
So YouTube.
So basically, I'll take a book and say, hey, I read this book, and I'll go on YouTube and say, hey, everybody, read this book. It's fantastic. Here's why. And then I'll then also take that message and I'll put it on Goodreads and Amazon. Because I was doing that before, Goodreads and Amazon reviews to help out other authors. So I want to keep up with that, but I wanted to, and I was doing that for a while on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which is typing out the review. It's easier for me just to kind of talk about it. So that's how I got into video reviews.
Mm-hmm. Your current reading habits, because you were mentioning Agatha Christie in the opening, do you tend to lean towards tried and true, bestsellers or just authors that are more well-known in the genres that you're reading? Or do you give indie authors and new authors, a chance more? Because we usually once or twice a year, we pick a selection of indie authors to read, but our to-read pile is so huge. Just the books classics and stuff we still haven't gotten through. But what are your reading habits?
Well, for me, it just depends on how I get access to the book. With my budget, I kind of a lot of people give me books, or I find them at those little. Have you ever seen those little libraries that people have on their lawn?
Yeah, we have a bunch of those in our town. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll open one, I'll look and be like, hey, a murder mystery. All right, well, I guess this is the next book I'm reading. But I also make myself available to other authors because I guess having 5 years experience in this now, I have a little bit of not clout, but just a little bit of experience. So sometimes they'll come to me and say, hey, can you check out my book? I'm like, sure, I'll check out your book. And which is a risk because sometimes they'll give me a book and I'll be like, oh, and I've read it and I'm like, there is something redeemable in here. I know there is. And I'm going to focus on that quality for this book to help you out.
It's hard to hurt someone's feelings and give you a free book,
Especially with self-published. So especially with indie writers like myself, I really give them a handicap because it's hard, especially if you are trying to do the edits yourself and you're trying really hard. And I'll be like, okay, he missed a comma here, but that's okay. I read one guy's series of books over the span of a year and a half, and he has no quotation marks in his dialogue. None.
Like Cormac McCarthy. Oh, I don't like that style. That's a specific style, but it's not fun.
But you know what? The stories are great. So I read the stories, I was like, okay, I just have to really focus really hard and not have anything playing in the background because I really have to make sure that I'm focused on this dialogue. So there's that. I'm very forgiving with that. Not everybody is, and I totally understand.
Well, was he deliberate in his absence of quotation marks, or was that just accidental? He didn't know about quotation marks or something?
I told him about that on the first one. I think he's just kind of
purposeful.
I guess he just feels like that's his thing.
Well,
but he wrote a whole series that was very good. It's a very, very good series of books. Very thriller with some. History fiction and spies and stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's a fantastic series, just no quotation marks.
Here's something I want to know, and only because this is something I would do just to be vain. When you go to those little libraries, do you ever put your book in?
Yes.
It's a good move, right?
Actually, I think I take them all out and just film with mine.
That's a little excessive. Dump the rest right in the garbage.
Right, but that gets pricey, because so even when you self-publish, you do have to buy your own copies. Now, again, I can't speak for Barnes & Noble or any other groups, but like I go through Amazon now. When I get an author copy, I'm just paying for basically printing costs and shipping. So I get a little bit of a discount, but it costs a little bit of money. So there's always that upfront. So if I'm giving something away for free, I really want to make it count. Like I'll definitely do it for like somebody that's a reviewer or a podcast or like something big and promotional. But I kind of steered away from sliding my books in those little book libraries, unless it's like if I go in and I kind of notice that the books get taken out of that library pretty quick. I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and sneak this one in here because I think somebody's going to take it. I remember one time at work, I took a copy of each book after I published Lifestar Corners, and I took a copy of each book to my job and I put it like in the break room, and I put a note that says, "All right, this is for free reading. Enjoy. If you take the book, please leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads."
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
I went and checked, and like somebody did take one of the copies, and I don't think I ever got a review from it. But who knows? Sowing a seed. Maybe one day they'll be like, "Oh, I forgot about so and so's book. Oh, it's fantastic. I need to go tell the world. Let me go shop on the rooftops."
See, with my luck, it would be like, guy work with wrote shitty book.
Oh man!
Fuck you, Steve.
You guys stole my copy? Yeah, you must have really hated it. You stole it.
Since giving your books away for free is not the best idea when it comes to making money, have you given any thought, or have you done any conventions, like book to table, to sell them at conventions?
Whenever I can, yes. Because I work weekends, and that's when they host most conventions. So I kind of really got to strategize that. But I actually have an event next week on Friday, on the 4th of August. That'll be in Northville, Michigan, for this because I'm in Michigan. So they're doing this festival called Buy Michigan Now, I think. And I did it last year, and so it's like just all these Michigan oriented products. So not just authors, but anybody that's like a local small business in the state. And they'll all be there, and I'll be there just selling our wares. So yeah, I love doing conventions, things like that. I actually do pretty well at like flea markets.
I never thought of that.
You probably, because there's some flea markets are huge, and you rarely see books outside of just maybe some old used books. So I can see you making a good penny off of that. It's a good idea.
There's advantages and disadvantages to it that I've learned. One of the advantages is setup. It takes me like 20 minutes to set up, whereas everybody else has to like have like 9 tables around them in the square, and they're sitting in the middle, and they got to make sure everything's on there, make sure it doesn't fall down. Me, it takes 20 minutes. But the disadvantage is all their stuff is on display. Like, oh, you like it? $10. You want it? Okay. Me, I really have to bring the person in.
Yeah.
So now there comes the engaging salesman. You're there to sell books, so you might as well sell. So I'm there. I'm not really sitting behind the table. I'm in front of the table and talking to people as they're walking by. Hi, do you like to read? What do you like to read? You like to read crime? I got crime. Check it out. Of course, you open yourself up to a lot of rejection at the same time. Because people walk past me like I just asked them something crazy. I'm like, hey, do you like to read? Like, no. You know anybody who likes to read? No. Like, how'd you get here? There's stop signs and parking signs and stuff. you hate to read? I always take it as a challenge. I go in there and I say, okay, today I'm going to sell out. I've come close a time or two. Never really accomplished that goal yet, but I've sold out a couple things before. I was like, hey, wow, that's one less box to load back into the car. So I enjoy doing those. I mean, if I could, I would do like 5 a week.
We have a few buddies who do the convention circuits, and it is almost like a carnival atmosphere because you have to perform and because a lot of people that do very poorly at those things, it's just because they sit there and they're quiet and they're just like, oh, you want to buy my book? And it's like, you have to bring people to you, and it's not always fun. But, depending on your personality, you can have a blast doing it. You can
Yeah.
meet a lot of cool people, and you can get fans for life just by,
Uh-huh.
because like we talked about the podcast, they can get a feeling for your personality.
Yeah.
But you can't do that if you're just quiet and you sit behind the desk and just hope people buy your book.
That's why I always keep like business cards and stuff on the table too. So sometimes they're walking by, I'm like, okay, how about this? If you know somebody who likes to read, take my business card and give it to them. And yeah, they might throw it in the trash, but you never know. 2 days down the road, the person's emptying out their drawer and they're like, oh, I remember this guy's business card. You know what? Why don't I go ahead and take a look? Oh, that seems pretty good. I'll read it. Oh, I love it. Let me go tell 100 of my best friends.
It's mainly just a numbers game. Yeah, you just give out enough, and even if just a small percentage of them buy your book or check out your stuff, there you go. You hooked another one.
Marketing can actually be fun, like it's not just the whole like posting on Facebook, buy my book. Like there's a lot of creative ways that you can really kind of get yourself out there. Like I love the business cards. I always keep a few with me. So like I'll go to like a Waffle House, and there's none in Michigan, but when I'm out of state, I'll go to Waffle House because I love them. And I'll, after I'm done eating, I'll be like, hey, by the way, I'm an author. If you like to read, go ahead and I did that today, actually. But I didn't have I actually wrote on the back of my receipt. I heard you like to read because you told me, so check me out. And you never know. So it can be fun, but it does take a lot of engagement and putting yourself out there.
Now, which
is hard at first.
Do you just like Waffle House because you like crime so much?
Jeez. So no, I just love Waffle House. First it's cheap.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like $10 for one person. Where do you don't even get that at McDonald's anymore?
No.
My wife's from out of state, so when we leave to go back down to her state, we pass through Ohio, and they have Waffle Houses. They don't have them in Michigan; they have them in Ohio. And first time I ever went to one was with her. She's like, "Let's stop at the Waffle House." All right, and I love them. So it's just, it's just cozy.
Cozy Mysteries in the Waffle House. That is a book one you guys need to write.
I'm gonna say that's
I was reading an Agatha Christie at the Waffle House this morning.
There you go.
I'm sure that probably got some weird looks. Probably like, what's this guy reading a book, especially an old book?
An old book.
Well,
reading what in a Waffle House? Blasphemy.
Well, that waitress was like, "Oh, I've been looking to get back into reading." I was like, "Well, I just happen to be an author. I'm back in my receipt." So
that's awesome.
That's like, I got something for you in my trunk.
Well, maybe not at the Waffle House. You can't say that. Not in the Waffle House parking lot. Come follow me in my van.
I usually have like a few copies. I usually have a few copies in my car, and I didn't have any. I was like, oh, and I usually have like a business card, but I ran out. So I was like, I need a pen right quick. Can I borrow your pen? Check this out.
Smooth. You were talking about marketing. One of the things I've been seeing online a lot lately, which I really like, are book trailers. Like people, when their book's coming out, they do like a lot of the indie horror authors I've been following recently on Instagram have been posting book trailers, and they're really cool. Like the music and just all the, FX you can use and stuff. And, the way people do TikTok now, like they make some really professional looking videos. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, you can do all that on your phone now. It's pretty convenient because in the old days, you'd have to pay somebody to do stuff like that.
Speaking of on your phone, that's how I wrote all my books. I write right on my phone.
Really?
Wow.
Well, that's interesting. Yep. What do you use? Google Docs?
Do you guys have iPhones?
Both Androids.
Oh, I have. I don't know if it's on Android, but there's an app on iPhone called Pages, and I just write right on there.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah. I mainly when I write on my phone, I just use Google Docs, and that's good for short stories. I don't really trust that to write my books because, just being on a cloud, I don't want it to... Amazon one day says, you know what, fuck you, buddy, delete all your stuff. And then... That's
why I always email them to my wife every now and then. Like, let me go ahead and re-email
Yeah, here's a quick PDF, just save that or something, or a Word doc. And then also, I use like Scrivener and stuff too, which is just, that's on my computer, and then I back it up. But I'm still very terrible at keeping track of all the stuff I'm doing. You know what? I saw a video you posted. I think it was a TikTok that was interesting because I've been doing it a lot more recently, playing video games before you write.
Yes, I love it. So I've been an avid gamer all my life. I really wanted to. So my options were either sacrifice gaming to focus on my writing or incorporate it into my process. and I can't just sit down and just write. I need some more stimulant.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just I get up early, get a cup of coffee, turn the PlayStation on, I'll play a little bit, then I'll start writing. Get a good portion done, play a little bit more, and then I'll start writing. I'll like kill that guy or beat that level or complete that quest, whatever game I'm playing. Right now it's Red Dead Redemption 2. And
I wouldn't get any writing done if I was playing that. I would just play that for hours and hours.
It's actually kind of screwed me up. So like whenever I'm playing video games, I have to like do something else every now and then because I get so restless.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just be, I'm obsessed. I can't just be comfortable. I'll be like, okay, I finished that quest. Let me go ahead and read some pages of this because I have to do some book reviews later. So let me go ahead and read this book here. And but it gets me through, I set a word count for myself every day, and I always accomplish it. So it helps me. It's a reward system. It's like, okay, I'm doing good. Let's go ahead and enjoy this a little bit, and keep me awake, and then I'll go back to writing. So it's a discipline, but for me that works. I remember one writer said, I don't know her name, but she said that it worked for her. So I said, that sounds like something that's right up my alley. Why don't I go ahead and adopt that? And I love it.
See, my problem is I'm like very focus driven. So once I'm on something, that's what I'm doing for a while. So I could play video games before I write, get the creative juices flowing, kind of relax my brain, get in a different atmosphere. Then I can go to writing, and then I'm just doing that. But if I was like the back and forth, that probably wouldn't work for me. I could do that if I'm writing on my phone and like say I'm watching a couple videos or something, and then I'll knock out a couple paragraphs. I'm stuck. I don't know what I'm writing. I might go watch a couple more videos or TikTok reels or YouTube reels or something, and YouTube shorts. There's too many fucking things. Reels, shorts, TikToks. I miss Vine. What happened to Vine? They get rid of that. That was fun. 30 seconds. That's all the videos were. That's what we need.
I miss Vine.
Yeah, Vine's the good old days. But what about you, Spencer? Because you're one of them sporadic kind of guys when you're writing. Do you like to stay focused on the writing the whole time, or do you like him, have to take breaks and do other things?
Sometimes, like if I can get in a zone, I can do a longer period of writing. But I think I'm like a little like ADD a little bit where like I can't sometimes I can't spend more than like 15-20 minutes at the keyboard. I'm just like my eyes or like I just like I guess so like I'll have to like push it away, and I might like read like a couple comics or something or whatever book that I'm reading, and then try to go back or try to like maybe if it's on an off day like try to organize some books, kind of get that physical movement around, because like that's another thing that people sometimes do where they're like
go take a walk or
like
something.
A walk or something like that's kind of how like they kind of like free up their mind or whatever.
I do that when I'm coming up with ideas. I'll just walk. A lot of times it's just in the gym does it for me anymore. But yeah, like the attention thing, like they always, the old notion was you just sit down and bleed at the keyboard. You don't have to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Like you do what works for you. If you're a binge writer, do that. If you're a sporadic writer, just as long as, like you said, James, get the word count down. Whatever your goal is, as long as you hit that, it's fine. You can, write it in the morning and then don't touch it until late evening. Whatever you do is fine as long as you're getting your goals accomplished. That's the main thing. I think for a long time I tried to stay rigid with the routine, and that almost always led to failure. Because if I missed the routine one day, I felt like shit. And then the next day, I'm like, I got to do it. And then it became a chore versus just letting it flow naturally. It's like, I feel like writing now. I'm going to write. And as long as I'm hitting my goals, it doesn't really matter when I write, just as long as I do it. Oh, I forgot. You mentioned something I was going to bring up, but I lost it. Influences. That's right, Spencer. Of course, influences. I find, it's because you said, sometimes you'll stop and you'll read or something. I have a hard time doing that because if I read something between writing, depending what I'm reading or who I'm reading, it might influence my work, especially if it's something that's similar. So if I was writing a crime story and I read, Raymond Chandler or somebody, or James Michels, perhaps, if I read something of his, it might affect how I'm writing my and I start, cribbing his style, or, that's a good idea, I should just take it, something like that. Have you had anything like that come up in your work where it's like whatever you're reading is influencing your writing too much?
No, I wouldn't say too much. If there's something I like, I may incorporate that. Like, okay, so I love Godfather, so of course I read it. And I loved kind of like the romantic kind of way that he created Don Corleone. So when I had like the Ballad of Johnny Carlo and I created my own Mafia Don, I didn't make him Don Corleone, but I liked the kind of the romantic way in that he talked, almost, just the way he walked around is, you have to understand that we do this for the family. So I kind of I just like that, those seeming mannerisms. So I want to include that. But there's things that I like to pick up from authors where it's like, okay, this person is very descriptive of their characters and their settings. I need to do a little bit more of that, I feel. Or, this person, or maybe I'll like, okay, so how does that person make their dialogue? Okay, so they give them a paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Do they always incorporate like an action, like the person twitches and talks and then takes a sip and talks? Or does he just talk? Well, that story's flowing pretty well, and sometimes he's not always doing something. Okay, so, in a way, it helps me kind of be a better writer when I see just something I like, not the story itself, and say, oh, he's looking for a stolen map? Well, my guy's looking for a stolen map now. No, I won't do that.
Yeah.
But if I kind of like the atmosphere that's kind of coming from the book, I want a little bit of that.
And maybe, just maybe, not use quotation marks one time.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll try that out, see if it works. I would just get mad if I read an indie author and they was like, hey, you don't have any quotation marks. Why are you doing that? Like, fix it.
I've read a few books where like they'll kill off a character that I really like. I'm like, oh, I'm actually naturally depressed. Now I need to figure out how to do that to my readers.
Yeah. Have you ever read someone's work where it almost makes you mad at how easy it reads? And you're like, why are they so good at this? I need to be able to do this. And then you have to try to like dissect it and figure out how are they getting everything to flow so well? Usually it's a pacing thing that's just like, why is my story not paced the way this story is?
Well, sometimes it might just be you, like it's how you're seeing it.
Could be.
But it's not how others are seeing it, like you really have to step outside yourself, and really kind of, when you write a story, get done with it and give it to somebody that you really trust that's going to be honest with you and just see how they feel about it. Like, that's what I did. I went to like a buddy of mine who I knew was going to be honest with me. Like, that's my dude. And he's like, I love it. Not only do I love it, but I will edit it. I'm like,
whoa, okay.
Oh, I found a friend in you. He was already a friend.
I found a useful friend.
A useful friend.
Or like, my wife, for example, because, my wife, she's not just saying she loves it just because she loves me, but, she's a very honest person. So if there's something wrong, she'll let me know, and she's not a reader. So she'll read it. She'll be like, oh, I love it. And yeah, it's a good feeling. You want to give that to somebody that you really trust and say, okay, how do you feel about it? How does it flow? Even if it's not their cup of tea, to say, but does the story flow well to you? So sometimes you just need that extra set of eyes at your own work.
Have you ever tried lending your work out to beta readers that you didn't know, like strangers online? Because I've done that before, and it was hit or miss. Some very useful feedback because they had no stakes in me or hurting my feelings or anything like that. And the worst was probably just useless feedback. Like, a lot of times you just get useless feedback because not everyone's good at reviewing things.
Right. They could tell you that they don't like it, but they can't necessarily tell you why.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from some very close people, no, I don't really use beta readers. Only because, like, for me, I'm just thinking about the story all the time as I'm writing it. And then once I get done, as long as I get that satisfied feeling, then I'm good, like, okay, this fits together well. I mean, me, I'm like, I write, like, I shoot from the hip when I write. I don't outline. I don't, I may have like a beginning and I may have an end, but the end is subject to change. And I just write until I'm done. So I kind of just let the story flow out of me. I don't, I kind of let it control me in a way.
That's a good way for writing mystery and crime in general, though, just because if you don't know what's coming, really, then how's the reader going to know?
Though,
right. Yeah, so, like, for me, when I write, I always tell people, like, I'm reading it first. So whatever emotions you get, I've already felt. Like, I felt that.
I was just gonna say the bad side of maybe not having an exact idea with the ending is that the painting yourself in the corner where it's like, oh, this guy's the bad guy, but I wrote this whole book and I haven't left any clues to really point to this guy being the bad guy.
Could give you some extra work.
Another point I wanted to bring up about, like, whenever you were talking about the smoothness of a writer, a lot of times the other side of that coin, that especially readers who don't write, may not realize is that the untold amount of hours that took just on that one paragraph to make it sound really nice. So it's just like, if it's not there when the first couple drafts, just know that, you have to kind of maybe keep on chipping at it, or, working at it, that it's not going to be there, especially on those first couple drafts.
Well, to paraphrase a long dead writer that I don't remember who said it or exactly what they said, easy reading is damn hard writing. Like, it's very difficult to write something that reads easy.
Yeah.
That's just, a very skilled author who could do that. And even them, usually they have a good editor.
Well, that's even like Hemingway, right? Like, his writing was very succinct and and kind of, I don't know, smooth, but like kind of like especially with his word, but like the sweat that in time he would put into writing that sentence,
and then often it came out boring.
No.
Depending on what story it was. That's the thing, you can write, no matter how well you write, story's always going to trump writing style. So if the fucking story sucks, nobody's going to care how good it's written.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter how well written it is. It's just, you have to have a good story, in my opinion.
Yeah, because if the story is good, it can overshadow some of like the
flaws.
Well,
we're pushing an hour here, so we should probably wrap this up. James, do you have, I would say advice, but I don't like doing that. Nobody likes giving advice. You got advice just from listening to the whole episode. How about we go to the promotion side of things? You had a couple books. You said you got one in the editing process. What would you like to promote? Go ahead. This is your time.
I would love to promote my books. I'll take that. As we mentioned before, I have 4 books out. I actually have copy of each of them right here. Ice Rising. This was my debut novel. Ongoing series tells the story of a young man's transformation from a young innocent child to ruthless criminal. Kind of has that Breaking Bad type thing where part of you understands his motives, even though you don't condone his actions. And as you read in the story, you will see him just become more and more ruthless of a character. So that dissension into darkness type. Icebox is the sequel. So while Ice Rising is Alexander Lincoln, that's the main character, Alexander Lincoln's initial rise to power on the streets, Icebox takes us off the streets, puts us behind the walls of prison. Alex, who now goes by Ice, hence the commonality of the titles, he's got himself into some trouble, and now he's got to learn a new set of rules in a brand new environment. Ice Rain is the 3rd book that is coming out very soon. Ice has gotten out of prison, and now he's faced with a whole new set of problems, possible new war on the street, while also reestablishing his relationships with his family after being incarcerated. Then there's my standalone, The Ballad of Johnny Carlo, actually about 2 people, a mafia hitman and a homicide detective who meet, and once you know it, they fall in love, but then they're targeted by the same shadowy criminal organization that seeks to control all of the organized crime in the U.S., and they're both at the top of their hit list. So will they walk into the sunset together, or will they share a grave?
That looks like a girthy book there.
Yeah.
Huh?
That looks like a pretty girthy book there.
This was my 2nd book. This took me 15 months to write.
That's a cool cover, too.
Yeah.
Is that 2 people, like, back-to-back with, like, a split?
Yeah. New York City and New Orleans.
Triple split, yeah.
Yes, sir. And then Lifestar Corners, 5 short stories, 5 epic tales of crime. What do they all have in common? Me. I wrote them. So they're all available on Amazon. They're all available on Amazon for paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. Ballad Johnny Carlo also has a hardcover. And for anybody that wants to reach me, you can always check them all out at my website, jamesmichelsbooks.com, which has my own personal email on there if you want a personalized signed copy from me, or if you just want to chat. And you can also sign up to my email subscription form on there. And I'm also on YouTube at James Michels Books, TikTok at James Real Mike, Facebook at James The Real Mike. It's a play on my last name, Michels, Mike.
I got you.
Twitter is at James Real Mike. And then, of course, my Instagram, which is James E. Michels.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. I did not expect we were going to be talking for a whole hour, just because I haven't read any of your books yet, because I haven't got around to reading any of the stuff that I need to read. Yeah. But that's the problem. We always have guests on, and I think we've only ever read one guest's book by the time they were able to come on.
Right.
Like usually, I think we've had a couple people send us books, and they're like, "Hey, will we come on next week?" I was like, "Sure, I'm not going to read your book in a week. Like, it's 800 pages." I'll definitely be checking out your stuff, though. Yeah, we follow you on Instagram. I was going to say, do I follow you on anything? Yeah. Probably following you on Twitter, too. But yeah, thanks for coming on. For you fans who want to check out our stuff, you can go at DPW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Spencer's OnlyFans this week is the Dakota Dirt Devil.
Yes.
So what does that mean you're doing?
I'm just cleaning stuff.
Just cleaning stuff?
Yeah, it's the Dirt Devil.
Kind of wholesome.
Bathroom. Yeah.
It's better than that new TikTok fad where everyone acts like an NPC and people pay them money.
Oh, that's weird.
It's annoying. Why is that a thing I didn't know? Why can't I ever get ahead of the trend so I could do it and make money? How do you make $5,000 a day acting like an NPC from a video game? Anyway, we thank you for listening, and we will check you out next time.